Kailyn Lowry and Elijah Scott open up about son Rio's traumatizing birth. He didn't cry. The soon-to-be mom of 7 looked back at her last birthing experience. Kailyn Lowry is opening up about her experience birthing baby number 5. The pregnant podcaster, 31, sat down with boyfriend Elijah Scott for a new episode of her Barely Famous podcast, where the two discussed son Rio's birth last year. The two recall sitting down after dinner only for Lowry to start having contractions a month ahead of her due date. When she got to the hospital with Scott, they did a biophysical on her baby, which the unborn child failed every last bit of it. So that was a deciding factor that they were going to augment the process by speeding things up. I don't know how I feel about that now, Lowry admits, saying she felt very anxious during the process. I had never experienced an augmented birth, and that was a big part of it too. Never miss a story. Sign up for People's free daily newsletter to stay up to date on the best of what People has to offer, from juicy celebrity news to compelling human interest stories. Pregnant Kailyn Lowry celebrates sons Rio and Isaac for World Prematurity Day in photo with all 5 boys. Lowry says she was in labor for about 17 hours when it was time to push. I remember them asking you if you were ready to start pushing, and you said, yeah, Scott recalls. And from you saying that it was 2 minutes and he was here. Scott laughs, calling Rio Mr. Rocket. Lowry then asks him to explain why he didn't cry when the baby boy was born. I need you to tell the podcast listeners what you told me, because the first time I asked you why, I didn't want to keep bugging you about it, she shares. I didn't want to upset you, and I didn't want to upset myself, but I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why didn't you cry? Scott explains, the reason is when he came out, they said, his breathing was hard to find. They took him over to the little baby stand thing, and he was barely breathing and also had fluid in his lungs. I'm worried about him, and you're over here crying asking if he's okay. And I'm like, yes, he's fine. But he wasn't fine, Lowry interjects, to which Scott replies, no, but I'm trying to keep you calm and still trying to worry about him. It's kind of traumatic in a way. Lowry also says she only recently looked at photos from the birth because it was all the way traumatizing for her. When they took him over to the incubator thing, there were 8 or 9 nurses working on him, she says. And I didn't know what was going on. We didn't hear anything. He wasn't breathing, and they kept saying he wasn't breathing, so that's where I was like, okay, this is near death. Scott disagrees about it being a near-death situation, but agrees it was worrisome that Rio didn't cry 4 days. When Lowry was in a meeting with his medical team discussing her concerns about that, Scott's mom came in and reported that he was finally crying. And I lost it. Like I lost it. I just thought it was really weird because I know they do the stimulation and things like that to help the baby cry. I thought if they weren't crying something else could have been wrong. It could have been something else unrelated to the